Hello friends, welcome back to the next session on operations planning, scheduling and control. Now let's begin with our learning. In this particular session, we'll be understanding and dealing with the concept of an introduction to ERP, the learning objectives. At the end of this particular session, the learners will be able to understand and mean what do we mean by ERP, explain how to implement an ERP system in the operations management, and lastly, list down the various ERP components. Now let's first understand what do we mean by an ERP. ERP, it simply stands for Enterprise Resource Planning, and it is a sort of software that businesses use to handle their day-to-day operations, including the accounting, procurement, project management, risk management, compliances, and supply chain operations. So a software that maintains the employees or day-to-day organizational operational activities of the business consideration, may it be a small or maybe it be a big, is called as an ERP, that is an enterprise resource planning. All the participants, that is whether it is a material, whether it is a men, whether it's a finance, whether it's a goods, services and commodities, everything is a resource to the organization. And a particular software which deals with maintenance of the resources is called a enterprise resource planning software. So in a particular software where all those particular activities and components are being controlled, they have been observed or they have been monitored in a very effective way, such type of consideration is called as an ERP software. Now, in case in this particular diagram, you can see what are the various components or the participants of an ERP software. The activities may be related to the production, may be related to the inventory, the services, human resource, MRP, purchasing, CRM, sales, financials, and so on. So these are the various sectors or avenues or areas in which ERP software can be applied and the operational activities can be controlled. So it's a day-to-day operational activities, which may include several types of operations or several types of activities. Now let's understand why ERP, that is enterprise resource planning, is being required. So it is needed for the organization to leverage a suite of integrated applications. So there are various applications, there are several number of activities that the organization has been undertaken. So in order to leverage those particular activities, there is an importance for an integrated software that has been required. And integrated, which means a comprehensive software, which will take care of all those activities that have been undertaken in the business organization. And for those consideration, ERP is standing a very important role, and it leverage, that is, it smoothens and functions each and every activities in a very better consideration. And hence, for those consideration, we must have the proper software which take consideration or which considers all the activities in a better way. The ERP system streamlines and automate all the processes. So all the processes that we are conducting with the help of ERP software, all those activities are being streamlined and they are conducted in a very automated way. So automated processes are very easily possible with the help or with the consent of ERP that can be implemented in a business organization. And hence, for those considerations, we must identify and we must see that how we implement a proper ERP system, how it accepts or controls all the regulatory activities that have been undertaken, and how it undertakes the activities that have been automated in nature. The next perspective is creating a leaner and more accurate. So we must create a proper leaner and accurate approach, which creates a better organization place, and all the activities have been streamlined for the proper consideration and smooth functioning of the business activities. Maintenance of records, controlling of goods, services, and activities, checking, system monitoring of all those activities, it has been possible with the help of an ERP software or an ERP system that has been undertaken. Efficient operations, yes. So in case of an operational activities, we can have a proper control and watch on all the activities that have been undertaken in the perspectives of operations, and from those particular perspectives, the ERP software can be taken into account as to how do we implement those activities and how efficiently operational activities are being undertaken. So for those considerations, the ERP software acts as a mode or acts as a consideration about or a helpful consideration as to the efficient operations or the control of business activities. Complete visibility into the core business processes. So we can have a complete visibility into the core business processes, and accordingly, the organization can specifically focus on which are the core areas of the business organization. So our controlling of those particular core areas on the basis of an ERP software, every activity can be focused, and accordingly, we may have a better and clear approach as to which activity needs to be focused and which activity needs to be planned in a sequential way. Now let us understand what are the various main ERP components. So the various main ERP components are, number one, that is customer relationship management, which is also called as CRM. The second perspective is the business intelligence, that is BI. The third is the supply chain management, which is also called as SCM. And the fourth perspective is the inventory management system, wherein we have to maintain the management, that is IMS. So main components of ERP, CRM, that is related to this maintenance of data, records, and communication with the customers. So customer relationship management is the major effective role of the foundation base for the ERP components. Business intelligence with respect to the strategic strategic management, strategic planning, and the long-term and short-term goals of the organization. So financials data, human relations data are being maintained in terms of a business intelligence. In case of a supply chain management, the transfer or movement of goods and services from one place to another place, one department, another department, one composition to another composition, all those activities can be conducted or it can be controlled on the basis of supply chain management activities in case of an ERP, that is enterprise resource planning software. And lastly, the inventory management system. So for control on inventory, we can have a better ERP system, which focuses on the input and output of a particular inventory, maintenance of the various stock level, and what are the various rates that have been observed, whether there is an increase or decrease in the inventory, whether there is a wastage or certain muda that has been created, and so on. So for effective maintenance of inventory, ERP helps a lot in all those perspectives. Now let us understand what are the various areas that have been covered by the ERP software, that is enterprise resource planning. The first area that has been covered by ERP, that is enterprise resource planning software, is the concept of marketing. Or in this particular diagram, you can see various areas that can be covered are finance and accounting, human resources, manufacturing, supply chain management, project management, and customer relationship management. In case of the various areas, that is as per the departmental perspectives, it may be a marketing department, a finance department, the human resource department, the manufacturing department, that is productions or operations, and lastly, the supply chain management along with the project management. So these are the various areas or the various departments which have been covered by the enterprise resource planning, and every resource, activity or the resources that have been required can be betterly controlled with the help of an effective ERP software. Now let's understand what are the various objectives of ERP system. The first objective of ERP system is to improvise the service experience. So whatever service that we are delivering, we need to see that how do we improvise those particular service experience, and the service delivery for the customers is very effective. So for proper improvising of service experience, we must have a proper set or a planned series of activities, and how do we improve the delivery to the customers and to the people and to the public. So whether it is related internally to the organization or externally to the organization, we must always try to see that how do we improvise those service experiences, and in what way service experiences can be delivered in a very better and effective way. So for those considerations, we must have a proper ERP system in existence. The second perspective is enhancing the competitiveness. So for the enhancement of competitiveness, we must have a proper ERP system which has been controlled by the organization in better considerable way. And for those considerations, we must have an enhanced competitiveness. So for increasing the competitiveness, for building or developing the better or effective productivity of those goods and services, we must have a proper ERP system which controls, regulates, functions, and governs the proper management of all the goods, services, commodities, and the departments. The next objective of ERP software is modernizing the business processes and systems. So for effective maintenance of those goods, services, processes, and business systems in the organization, we must have a modernized business process and systems. And with the help of an ERP, those particular objectives can be achieved in a very better and considerable way. So in a business organization, when we say that there are various business objectives, for those considerations, we must have a proper set or a planned series of activities. And with the help of an ERP, we can have those considerations in a better considerable environment. So that is the concept of modernizing the business process and systems. The next objective that can be fulfilled with the help of ERP is automating business solutions. So all the business activities can be conducted in a very automated way, and it can be a streamlined processes as to how each and every activity can be conducted one after another. So for automation of business solutions, ERP software helps the organization conduct those activities in a better planning and a systematic way. Now let's understand what are the four different categories in terms of an ERP. The first category is the box ERP. The second category is the large scale ERP. The third category is the intermediate and the flexible ERP. And the fourth category is the industry specific ERP. So from those different perspectives, the various categories of the ERPs have been divided, or it has been classified as box, large scale, intermediate and flexible, and industry specific. So organization, depending on their business size, scale, consideration, value, or the activities that have been conducted, they can implement any one of those particular categories, and accordingly, the classification or implementation of ERP, that is enterprise resource planning, can be undertaken. Now let's understand what are the major modules that have been required for an ERP implementation. The major modules that have been required are, number one, the first is accounting and finance. Number two, that is CRM, which is also called customer relationship management. Number three, that is HCM, which is a human capital management. Number four is the inventory and the storage management, which is related to the stores department, inventory department, and so on. And lastly, the enterprise asset management. So it's a department which deals with the maintenance or the control of the assets in the short run as well as in the long run, or of the fixed and the flexible or the tangible and intangible assets in the business organization. So the modules that have been required for ERP implementation covers all these particular areas. And for each and every single area, we can have a specialized expert or a comprehensive system or a software which controls all those activities. Now let's understand what are the 4 stages in the ERP life cycle. So the various 4 stages in the ERP life cycle are: number 1, in the first cycle comprises of the various several phases through which the system goes through its whole lifetime with a particular event or a particular activity. So in an organization, the various phases of the organization that conducts are the composition of the ERP, and accordingly, the ERP cycle has the various 4 phases. These particular 4 phases have been classified, or they have been designed or coined by Marcus and Tanis, and accordingly, those particular 4 cycles or the 4 phases are: number 1, chartering; number 2, project; number 3, shakedown; and number 4, onward and upward. So these are the various 4 phases in which the ERP cycle can be implemented, and it can be brought into the organization as a part of an enterprise resource planning. So from this consideration or the discussion, we can understand that with the power of enterprise resource planning and the wide interfunctional coordination and integration, ERP system initially arose in the late 1980s and into the earlier 1990s. And today, in the modern era of this scenario, ERP softwares have been widely used in the business organizations for control of the various activities that have been related to the customer service, human resource, business intelligence, financial management, inventory management, and supply chain management, and so on. And all these particular platforms, services, or activities are been brought on a single platform. So for keeping a proper track record of these activities, for the effective essential identification of the essential performance of the business organization, ERP software plays a very important role. And from those considerations, it helps the organization to keep a track record of all the activities. Maybe it related to production, maybe it related to finances, maybe it related to distribution, may it be related to the human resource, capital management, and so on. So now let's summarize what we have learned in this particular session. In this particular session, we have understood what do we mean by an introduction to ERP, which planning is been required for an introduction to ERP, and lastly, how do we implement an introduction to ERP system in the business organization. I hope you must have enjoyed the learning in this particular session. We'll stay connected and we'll continue with our learning. Thank you so much for your patience listening. Thank you.